Coming into number 10, we have an assassination warning from the year 4932. Apex TV, as you'll soon discover, are the gift that keep on giving. They make paranormal videos and are basically a conspiracy theorist's wet dream. In December 2017, they published an audio clip purportedly sent in to them by a time traveler from the year 4932. How did the time traveler reach them in the first place? By email, apparently. 30 years ago we were sending post, but apparently in 2,900 years time, we're still sending emails. I'm actually just gonna say straight up, we won't be. We're just gonna be communicating with the power of our minds. Anyway, the anonymous time traveler has a warning about the future president, which he says will be enough to get him killed for relaying. He says that the year 4932 is a time and a world that many people listening to would not relate to as ideal, and that time as a traveling journey has destroyed future ambition. He says that humanity no longer seem to pursue progression. He also claims that years are mysteriously falling off the calendar. He said that when attempting to journey to a future year that they'd previously journeyed upon, our error notes returned the period classification as unavailable. This suggests that the future is changeable, and with that logic, he assumes that the past is too. His message warns of the assassination of a President Janu Oliver Beck in July 2084. Janu, by the way, is supposed to be born in September this year, so watch out for that. The time traveler says he must never be elected because he must never be assassinated. Apparently, the president was also a philosopher before taking office, and he managed to prove the existence of a god. The time traveler said if we preserve his philosophy, we will preserve the future of humanity. He ended the message by saying a number sequence: 16, 8, 4, 4, 8, 4, 4, 4, 8, 8, 4, 8. Now this has stumped Apex TV viewers. The video has had over 2.6 million views, and none of them know what the weird numbers at the end mean. Coming into number 9, we have the Great Awakening in the Age of Aquarius. On November the 26th, 1977, a scary alien voice interrupted a British TV broadcast at 5:10 in the afternoon on ITV. Hijacking the Hannington transmitter, a scary speaker interrupted transmissions for 6 whole minutes, claiming to be an alien called Virillan from the Intergalactic Association. With a distorted voice, Virillan says that all weapons of mass evil must be removed. He warns humanity that they have a short time to learn how to live together in peace. The voice implored viewers to remain peaceful so that we could be part of the Great Awakening in the Age of Aquarius. The hijacker was voice only, and later ITV called the hijack a breakthrough in sound. Now, the identity of the hijacker has never been found, but afterwards tongues were firmly set wagging. A lot of alien conspiracy theorists hailed the interruption as a message from aliens of the future who have mastered the ability to send messages through space-time. Coming into number 8, we have the Drunk Traveler. Do you know what? I might try this one. In October 2017, police officers in Casper, Wyoming apprehended a drunk who claimed to be a time traveler. The self-confessed time traveler had a message of warning too. Now this warning wasn't beer and liquor never sicker, which is a shame because I think he could have used some advice there. His warning actually said that aliens will arrive in the year 2018 and cause havoc. The drunk man said that he was from the year 2048 and he was able to time travel because, and I quote, aliens filled my body with alcohol. Alright then. Coming into number 7, have we been sent a message from the future from a nearby star? Okay, when are we going to stop naming our stars insane letter combinations? This star is HD 164595, which really isn't very catchy. This star is a G-type star 94.35 light years away from Earth. In 2015, we seemingly received a message from something in the vicinity of this star. The signal was only heard once by the Ratan 600 radio in Russia. It was not reported to the rest of the world until 2016. Now, the announcement came as part of the Breakthrough Listen project, which is now scanning the nearest 100 galaxies for transmissions. This star has been of interest to humans because it is in a habitable zone. A lot of theorists are suggesting that the message could be from a future form of humanity or even aliens. Coming into number 6, we have Noah. Noah, what a guy. He made headlines in 2017 when he appeared in several news publications and in an interview with Paranormal Elite. Noah claimed to be from the year 2021, but apparently he'd been to the year 2120. It seems that Noah isn't his real name, it's just a name used to protect his identity. The man said that he was 50, but he'd taken secret drugs to make him younger, so he appears as a 25-year-old. Good. Great. In a video for Paranormal Elite, he says his sole objective was to prove that time travel exists. He said that it was invented in 2003 but was only used by top secret organizations. Time travel was then publicly released in 2028. He said that he works for the government in 2021, but unfortunately, he's been fired, meaning he can't get back to his time. He says that flying cars exist in 2021 and people love virtual reality. He also says that in 2021, the US president is still Donald Trump and that the sky is red with global warming in Las Vegas in 2120. He also claims that North Korea is a huge threat to the world in 2030. Coming into number 5, we have John Titor, who had some worrying words for America. John Titor claimed to be an American military time traveler from 2036, and he wrote on a number of blogs and bulletin boards between 2000 and 2001. He started with the Time Travel Institute forums. John's words were so impactful and garnered so much attention that countless works of literature and music have been inspired by them. His story is long, so I just want to give you the cliff notes. He basically says that the USA breaks up into 5 smaller constituents as a result of civil war. He also says that humans create a miniature black hole and that World War III would be erupting soon. Although his message very much panicked people 18 years ago, a lot of the things that John said would have happened by now haven't yet happened. He explained at the time of his warnings that the future was changeable, and a lot of people think that by spreading his warnings in the first place, he actually created a new timeline of events. Some people were so wrapped up in his narrative, they created the John Titor Foundation. Up next, a lot of people think that our next warning from the future also came from John using a different name. At number 4, we have the Y2K bug scare. A lot of people pin down the Y2K scare to a number of faxes received in 1998 by Coast to Coast AM. Basically, a lot of people were concerned that come the year 2000, computers would just break down and all hell would break loose. An anonymous time traveler faxed into the show saying that Y2K is a disaster and that the government had to take control using martial law. The time traveler wrote in by fax, which, yeah, cool, I'm sure we definitely are still faxing in 2034. The time traveler warned that people suffer in the future because they forget their basic survival skills, and you know what? I can kind of see that. As we know, the Y2K bug didn't happen, but some people were super scared. Coming into number 3, we have a 2016 computer virus. In December 2016, swathes of people around the world reported a scary computer malfunction that they assumed was a virus. People's internet browsing or Netflix viewing was interrupted by text from a man who said he was from the future. The text was patchy and mismatched, but eventually, through crowdsourcing, it was pieced together. The full text claimed to be from a man who said that he was a chronoquantum technician whose work had been banned. He said it was because, and I quote, to prevent me from doing exactly what I'm doing now, at long last sending a warning to our ancestors. He said that humans are taking a path into darkness, and it all began in the late 20th century when humans started accepting crimes and absolutely inhumane practices. He claimed all of the last 4 United States presidents were corrupt and blindsided people into accepting cruelty. Because humans were so stupid as not to realize what the politicians were up to, the hacker from the future claimed that we, your descendants, have lived in squalor, rancor, violence, and despair all of our lives for generations. Coming into number 2, we have the unrecognizable humans of 2987. Apex TV interviewed this guy in Armenia. Now, he said that he was employed by the Soviet in 1987. They wanted to send him and a group of fellow time travelers back in time to the 1600s. The machine that they invented was allegedly called the History Corrector, and it was designed to send people back to correct mistakes made in Russian history. The only problem was, they found they couldn't send people back, only forward. As a result, the man was sent forwards in time by 1,000 years to 2987 using a special watch. He said that that in little under 1,000 years, people are unrecognizable and almost mechanical. They're covered in devices and strange clothing. He said that people don't move, they levitate and apparate. He said that people are busy and emotionless and unhappy. He said that there are only 4 countries that exist: the Asian Federation, the Soviet Union, America, and a mysterious country called RA. Good news though, people do travel to Mars, and it's supposed to be really lovely in 1,000 years, so get me there. Finally, bad news for you guys living in the City of Angels, because LA is going to be underwater in the year 5000. I really feel like Busted called it when they said that they'd been to the year 3000 and not much had changed, but they live underwater, and then they met a really hot great-granddaughter. It was great, it was a good time. Maybe they're the real time travelers here. Seriously though, one time traveler called Edward offered a scary vision of the future. Speaking to our mates at Apex TV, who else, Edward said that he worked on a top secret experiment in 2004 which allowed him to time travel to the future. He said that he arrived at a wooden city floating on the water where he met a man who informed him of the post-apocalyptic floods. He ventured into the ocean and saw the old city sitting at the bottom of the ocean bed. He said that the flooding was as a direct result of global warming and that many people had suffered from the loss of coastal city worldwide. He basically confirmed that yes, the polar ice caps do melt and so many people drown.
At number 10 we have Andrew Carlson. This is what I'm talking about. You come from the future to make money, baby. You want to strike it big because you know when everything is going to happen and how it's going to happen, and then the money rolls in and you're going to be laughing. That is what this time traveler did. He came from 200 years in the future back to the year 2003 with only $800. Sort of an underdog compared to the rest of the big financial people on Wall Street, but he knew how to play the game. He made 126 perfect trades. This guy was batting 1,000, and with these perfect moves he was able to turn $800 into $350 million. God, that sounds like a dream come true. But you can't be that perfect. Andrew Carlson should have been a little less perfect because the United States Security and Exchange Commission wanted to have a word with him. And by wanted to have a word with him, I meant that they arrested him and started questioning the hell out of him. This is when he started to spill his guts about his time travel backstory. He said he was from 200 years in the future and then started to try and make deals to get out scot-free. He offered the cure to AIDS and some other tidbits. After the interrogation was done, he posted bail and then was never seen again. Probably went back in time to try and do this scam again without getting arrested. The story has since been called a joke, but that's exactly what the Illuminati would want us to think. They don't want us to start to think that time travel is real so we could do it for ourselves. Duh. At number 9 we have Paul Dyanek. You fall into a coma and then you get a glimpse of the future. Was it real, or was the world all just created in your mind? Well, Paul Dyanek seemed to think that it was 100% real. The year was 1921, and this poor son of a gun fell into a coma and was lost in his mind for over a year. That is a long time to be locked away with your own thoughts. Some people can't do 15 minutes alone without messaging someone on social media. I, on the other hand, love my own thoughts because I love myself. Well, Paul came back to the land of the living, and he was a little different. He seemed more secretive, and he started to jot down a lot of his memories in a journal that he didn't tell anyone about. This thing was top secret. Prior to Paul's coma, he worked as a teacher, and once he knew he wanted what was in his journal to go out to the people, he had one of his former students translate it. This was the first time that any other eyes would get a glimpse of what he was working on. It turns out when Paul was in a catatonic state, he was no longer in his body, but he entered the body of a man named Andrew Northman, who existed in the year 3906. His writings are online if you want to take a look at them, but I gotta say, Andrew Northman, it's not a very futuristic name. I would expect name to be like Zerblog Flurman or something. At number 8 we have the World Cup in 1962. You think if you were a time traveler, you might try not to be so obvious. I get that you're a time lord and the laws of man don't apply to you, but still be a little discreet. I mean, just look at this picture. Bro, you can't be taking your futuristic camera phone out at the World Cup when there's tons of other cameras around. Someone is for sure gonna see you. It's the biggest event in the world. But then again, does this guy care? He's just gonna jump in his time machine and then go watch another one of the world's biggest sporting events. At number 7 we have Adidas marketing. You dig up a mummy from over 1,000 years ago, you expect her to have some leather shoes on or be barefoot, but the last thing you expect is to see her sporting some fly as hell red Adidas. Now I'll start off by saying these weren't exactly red Adidas, Adidas, but they were leather boots that look a lot like them. But my theory is that she came from the future with the Adidas. She became a sick warlord, then inspired everyone to wear Adidas. It's really the most logical answer. At number 6 we have the Reykjavik Time Traveler. It's 1942, the world is in the middle of the biggest conflict anyone has ever seen. Millions of people have died and everyone is so scared that they wear a diaper at all times because you could poop your pants at any moment. A photo was taken to capture some of the tension in the city of Reykjavik, Iceland. And what do we have here? There's a bunch of people scared, but then in the background there's a dude on a smartphone. What is going on here? This guy's making some super secret call in his phone from the future, but there's no cell phone plans back in the day, so who could he be calling in this year? The thing that makes this time travel story so likely is that everyone talks about this when they talk about time travel. Go back in time and kill Hitler. Maybe that's what this guy was trying to do. At number 5 we have 1941 going on 2020. This next picture is super strange. I'll start off by saying it is 100% legit. It hasn't been doctored or changed in any way. But back in the year 1941 there was a dude who dresses the same way I do. If I came home and saw this dude chilling on the couch, I wouldn't be able to tell if he was one of my roommates or just someone who walked into my home. There's no way that someone was dressing like that back then. I wish we could see the logo on his shirt so we could have a little bit more information as to who this guy is. He's literally the only man not wearing a hat or a suit in the whole picture. At number 4 we have Portal Jumper. How do you travel through time? Do you have to have a big machine that used to fly through space and time? Or is it a little watch that no one would even think is anything suspicious? Or do you just walk through a tear in the fabric of time and space? I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but this guy might know. Let's take a look at this clip at a potential time traveler. Now this kinda does look fake, you know, it looks like it could have been edited in, but maybe this dude has unlocked the secret to jumping through space and time and that's how you do it. You just do a couple shoulder checks and then you do a light jog and Bob's your uncle, you're in a different time period. At number 3 we have the Charlie Chaplin Time Traveler. This clip was taken from the Charlie Chaplin movie Circus. Who is that lady? Why is she walking around on a phone in 1928? Now there has been a lot of speculation as to what is going on here. At first glance it does seem like this lady is talking into a smartphone, but she is dressed for the era and some people think she could have been holding a hearing aid, which was brand new tech at the time but it was still available. But I put her on this list because I'm obviously in the camp of this lady as a time traveler. Duh, she's talking to a smartphone in 1928. Of course she's flying through time. Duh. At number 2 we have Noah. This one makes a little more sense. You have a dude who's from the year 2030 and he doesn't want anyone to know his name or face or even what his voice sounds like because he's worried about running to himself from this time and causing a paradox. And who knows what will happen if that actually goes through. I don't know, the world could explode or something. The thing that really got the ball rolling on this one was this video of him taking a lie detector test.
Let's just start off with the basics and we'll see what the lie detector says. First off, are you an actual time traveler from the year 2030?
Yeah. He is asked a bunch of other questions like if Trump will get re-elected and he says yes, and he also says in the year 2030 Martin Luther King's granddaughter will run for president and become the youngest president ever and the first black woman to become president. And he passes all these questions on the lie detector test. I understand that lie detector tests can't be used in court, but it's still pretty interesting that he's able to pass the whole thing. Or it could all just be some sort of thing to get us all worked up and now we all fell for this guy's trick. And for the number 1 spot we have Edward. This guy claims that he was working on a time travel project in 2004. He went far into the future, and I mean hella far, like way past any of the other people we had on this list. He flies all the way to the year 5000 and he came back with this picture. That is Los Angeles, and I don't know if you can tell, but the whole place is underwater. That really ruins the fun beach weather that you want to enjoy because there's literally no beach. It would seem that we didn't do a very good job of controlling climate change and most of the world that we love got submerged. Well, you better invest in a houseboat now. That is the only answer.
Starting off at number 10 we have the Russian kindergartner. Now this story surrounds a girl who was Russian in her past life. Her mother claims that when her daughter was learning the alphabet she kept mixing up her letters. She would mix up her B's and V's and H's and N's. These letters aren't that similar, so it left her and her teacher confused, especially since her daughter kept saying, "I don't remember those." This little girl then states that she remembers the letter H, and that it makes an N sound. Then she said that she knew more letters and began to write out the Russian alphabet. Her mom asked her where she learned that, and she said Vlad taught me before he disappeared, and not Vlad the vampire. This little girl claimed that Vlad was her brother in her past life. How freaky! Like, there's no way that this young girl just happened to know the Russian alphabet, unless it was from her past life. At number 9, we have the daughter who just wants to go home. This mother claims that when her daughter was young, she kept begging her mom to take her home. When she asked where her home was, she said that she used to live near the water with her other family. That was until one day she passed away. She would even draw pictures of her past home and retell memories of her watching the waves. She also refers to her mom as Pa and wants to go back home to her other Mahi. Moving on to number 8, we have The Boy and the Scottish Pub. Just like the title suggests, this story takes place in a pub in Scotland. When a 4-year-old and his family stopped at a pub in a small village in Cairngorms, the little boy recognized the pub immediately and said, "My favorite place." The boy was able to direct his dad to the bathroom in the pub, which was said to be hidden behind a wall and not even labeled. Then the little boy kept saying how much he loved this pub and sitting beside the fire. But there was no fireplace, but the boy insisted that there used to be one against a certain wall. Then he continued to talk about more details of the pub and about the owner and his friend Fred. Bar staff then said that his claims were correct. Fred was the owner there, but passed away 10 years ago. Okay, wow. Either this kid has been sneaking out and partying it up at this pub, or he truly did go there in his past life. Moving on to number 7, we have the boy who is his own grandfather. Yeah, you heard me correctly. This boy claims to be the reincarnation of his grandfather. A year before Gus Taylor was born, his grandfather had passed away. However, when the baby was 18 months, he started referring to himself as his own grandfather, Grandpa Augie. When he was 4, he could point out his grandpa in photographs despite never even seeing him before. Gus would also talk about his sister. Now, the grandfather's sister had been murdered and they always kept that from Gus, but somehow he already knew this detail and would continuously talk about his past sister. Creepy. And also super confusing. So the grandfather was the dad to Gus's mom, but his mom gave birth to her dad, the grandfather? That's so weird. Next up at number 6 we have Cameron McCauley. Now there is a short little documentary on Cameron in case you are wondering and want to check it out as well. So basically, when Cameron was 2 years old, he kept saying that he had another life on a remote island called Barra. Now, Cameron was from Glasgow, but Barra is an hour flight away, approximately 220 miles from Glasgow. For 3 years, Cameron kept talking about his family in Barra. He said he had brothers and sisters and even had a black and white sheepdog. He said he remembers living in a white house near the beach and remembers planes landing nearby. He even remembers the view outside from his house's window. Cameron began missing his family so much that he would become super upset. That's when they ended up going to Barra to find his home. When they did find his home, it had the same view that Cameron described and was apparently even home to the same dog. However, Cameron said he had a father named Shane Robertson that passed away from getting hit in a car. This is the one thing that doesn't check out. Apparently there was never a Shane Robertson that lived there, so who's Shane? Honestly, maybe it was his father from like 2 lives ago. Who even knows? We are now at our halfway mark with Shanti Devi. Shanti Devi was born in 1926 in India. When she was 4 years old, she started making claims about her real name, her other family, and her past life. Apparently, she told her parents that she lived 145 kilometers away in a place called Mathura with her husband Kedar Nath. She also said that she died after giving birth to her child. Apparently, she even had the same talking habits as someone from Mathura. Her family eventually took her to the other village and found the man she claimed to be her husband by the name of Kedar Nath. Kedar then told them that he did lose his wife 9 years ago, 10 days after delivering their son. Now, Kedar was skeptical of this girl's claims, so when he went to go meet Shanti, he pretended to just be his brother. But Shanti instantly recognized him as her husband from her past life. Next on my list at number 4, we have James Leyanger. Born in 1998, when James was 2, he claimed to be a lieutenant and passed away when his plane was shot down. Now, just like any other parent would do, they just brushed it aside, saying that he had a wild imagination. But then he kept describing accurate information. When they researched into this plane crash, they found that there was an American pilot named Lieutenant James Houston Jr. who passed away in 1945 towards the end of World War II. First off, what are the odds that he gets reincarnated and his parents literally picked the same name? Now, the boy continued to talk about his ship, the Natoma, which was also true. He would also have reoccurring nightmares about an airplane crash. His parents then met Lieutenant James's crew, who are all old by now, but they confirmed the details that James mentioned, saying that they were all accurate and only the lieutenant and the crew could have known some of the details. Coming in at number 3, we have Edward Austrian. Edward Austrian was 4 years old when he claimed that he was a soldier from World War I. He kept saying that he passed away after taking a bullet to the throat. In fact, Edward continuously would get sore throats and would say that his shot wound was hurting. Doctors couldn't even explain why he was constantly getting these sore throats, and in fact he even developed a cyst in his throat at one point. Eventually the cyst mysteriously went away on its own after Edward started talking more about his past life. He claims that he was a soldier named James that was 18 years old. He has vivid memories from his past life that he would share with his family. One day he said, and I quote, "We were walking along through the mud. It was damp, it was cold. My rifle is heavy. I remember looking out and seeing trees, and then there was desolation. I heard a shot come from behind. It went through someone else, hit me square in the back of the neck, and I felt my throat fill with blood." There's no way a 4-year-old could have made up those details, especially since his parents claim that they've never let him watch any soldier or war-related movies or shows. Next up at number 2, we have the boy from Thailand. Chennai was 3 years old when he started having memories of his past life. This 3-year-old boy remembers being a teacher named Bua Kai. He talked about his previous family, wife, and children. He said that he passed away after being shot in the head while walking to school. What's freaky is that this boy has 2 birthmarks on his face. One on the back of his head and one above his left eye. Those are the exact spots where the bullet entered and exited Buakai's head. Now, people believe that birthmarks tell some sort of story from our past lives. In this case, it symbolizes how he was killed in his past. Now, Buakai was a real person that passed away about 5 years before Chennai was born. Coming in at number 1, we have the boy who solved his own murder. When a boy in Syria Golan Heights was 3, he began saying that he had been murdered in his past life. The boy said that he was killed by getting an axe to his head. This boy even had a long red birthmark on his head. In this boy's case, the birthmark also showed the way that he passed away. Now, it turns out that this boy's story checked out. They took him to the village that he said he once lived in, and even showed his family where his body was buried. When they unearthed his body, they found a boy's skeleton with an axe wound in the skeleton's skull. Like, there's no way that a kid could have just known where a body was buried by coincidence. But it doesn't stop there. The kid also remembered who the killer was and his full name. They then confronted him and he eventually admitted to the crime.